Good morning and Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you again, Kim, for kind of getting our meeting kicked off and the wonderful introduction, as you usually do for us. I will repeat something that we talked about before the recording started. Uh, my name is Shane Caudill, and I'm the director of the eVA program, and delighted to have everybody here in January on a very, very cold Tuesday morning. Our other panelists who have been with us now for a while, obviously Kim Pritchett and Tony Jordan, my deputy director, but I will, for the recording sake purposes for this meeting, reintroduce and say hello to Bree Driscoll. Bree Driscoll was just recently hired as the director of our PCR group here at DPS. I think now formally the title is PCR manager. We have done a little changing of some titling and things like that. But for those of you that remember Barb Lehman, Bree has come in and filled Barb Lehman's shoes as our PCR manager. So if you haven't worked with Bree in the past, you're going to see her a lot more often, certainly in the bug meeting. But again, she's been a very prominent figure here at DPS and with our PCR team for several years. So we're absolutely excited to have Bree with us moving forward, certainly for the bug meetings. So I'm very excited to work with her in a even enhanced role with the PCR and account executive team. So digging in today to our topics for our bug meeting and kind of our welcome into 2025. Kim has done a great job as usual with our welcome message. And for those of you that may be watching this as a recording versus being here live, please make sure you can sign up for the bug meetings and you can answer all of Kim's fun questions. And we spend about 5-10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, kind of getting everything booted up and saying hello to everybody. So next time, hopefully, instead of watching this recording, you're coming in and joining us live. We'd love to have you live for our bug meetings. And they are, as we reset for 2025, every other month. So our next bug meeting will be in March. And if you're on the list to come to the bug meetings, you'll get that email invitation and you can put that on the calendar and join us live here in March of 25. Some other things we're going to dig through today. I've got just a handful of news and notes and just some things to get you updated. We're going to talk a little bit about invoicing. And then the big focus, if you were with us at the Public Procurement Forum or with us at our last bug meeting that we did virtually, talked a little bit about the upgrade. And you'll notice there's a 180. That doesn't mean we're spinning around halfway. That's actually the point release that we're moving to. So we're moving to 1.80 is the version of eVA that we're going to be upgrading to. And I'm going to have a little discussion and some live demoing. Finally, going to do a live demo here for our user group to have some things to demo for you live. It's been a while, it feels like, since we've done a live demo. So excited to dig in and show you guys the 180 environment. And then Kim kind of mentioned with our housekeeping, for those of you watching the recording, you'll see the Q&A and you'll hear us answer some questions if we have time at the end. But certainly if you join us live, you get a chance to actually, if you have any questions related to this content, you can ask questions and we'll pick them up here as part of the meeting. So we'll do that at the end. Slide that I've just, it's probably been going on a year or more that I kind of leave in here so that it is recorded and you guys can always get access to these if you've forgotten where the links are and need to get a hold of them. But kind of our ongoing release management. To be fair, because of the upgrade, we haven't been doing a lot of releases or enhancements to our existing environment as we're focused on getting this upgrade completed. But once we do start doing releases again, and I would argue very strongly the March by our user group meeting, we'll have a big focus on enhancements, changes, some things we're going to be introducing into the eVA environment in 2025. So that ought to be a fun bug meeting. But those releases are actually documented on that web address you see there. And then some of our great training materials, including eVA tips, which kind of focus in on specific pieces or functions within eVA that we feel like should be pointed out. Those links are available there. So if you've never gone out to view these sites, go hit up our release notes, go check out our eVA tips for some great content about the eVA program overall. Let's dig into some news and notes. For those of you that use our contract module, we've been promising this for a while. I'm pretty sure it went out in an EVA Extra that this was available, but I just wanted to kind of highlight it here. Our contract QRG, our quick guide or our contract guide overall, was at one point in time, when we went live up until December, was just one linked guide, and it kind of had everything packed into it. Based on some feedback, based on our own preferences here at DPS and with our team, we really broke that guide out into more digestible sections. So if you haven't been into our training material section, so buyer training, and I'll navigate to this real quick as part of our demo here. I'll jump over to the contract QRGs just so you can see it. But we really broke it out into sections, creating contracts from a sourcing event, creating standalone contracts, adding contract expenditures, amending contracts, renewing contracts, and terminating contracts. So some key points within the contract management or contract creation process. And we broke those out into more digestible bites for you guys. So we hope that's helpful, going forward as you and your staff continue to use the EVA contract module. So again, I'll show you that real quick in the demo. And then something we've been promising for a while, this goes back to Forum 2023, quite honestly. We talked about it at Forum 2024. We've talked about it occasionally here in the user group. We are, thanks to Tony and some prioritization and some things that he's done, getting ready to push through a lot of transaction print. So and I don't mean print to paper. Certainly you can print things to paper, but this concept of printing transactions and various things within EVA into PDF so that you can, store it electronically or whatever you need to do with those transactions. We've gotten over the last couple of years since we went live, lots of feedback from y'all. We made some changes a few months, well, maybe more than a few months ago now. We had another list of some things that were really critical for y'all. We've kind of had some other priorities take precedence on that, but I'm really excited. I think you're going to see some movement on these transaction print updates sooner rather than later, particularly based on a conversation we had just on Thursday with CGI as we were planning some stuff for 2025 and being able to kind of bundle up a lot of these things and really make some progress on that. So I'm excited to share that. I know you guys have been asking us going on, really since we went live on a couple things. So hopefully going to make some real changes for you there in the transaction print area. So that's just some quick news and notes and some updates and some things that are going on. I want to shift now to invoicing. If you've been to the user group over the past several months, or if you've been to the forum, or just been around our team, invoicing has been something that we've been focused on going back to last spring, and getting that live and getting things going and moving out with implementation. I just wanted to get you kind of a quick update on some things going on with invoicing, and really then teeing up invoicing into our discussion about the upgrade and a little bit of some demoing and kind of moving around in our new 180 environment, which I'm going to show you here in just a few moments. We are still in the process of implementing. I think we're going to be implementing throughout all of 2025, and we're excited about that. I appreciate all the agencies we have worked with up to this point. And I don't need to name every single one, but again, for those of you that are out there that we've been working with, we've learned a lot of lessons. We've adjusted our approach. We've had some in-person meetings and just really appreciate everybody's feedback on that. From a functional perspective, invoicing is absolutely in production. It is production ready. We do have, if you have read ahead on my slides, you'll notice there's a invoicing enhancement thing down there. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But our rollout continues, and we're really kind of looking at 2025 to make some real advancements, not necessarily with enhancements, which there are several that I'm going to talk about. But certainly getting some agencies up and running. And I think within the next several months, we're going to make a lot of progress in that regard. And I'm excited about that. We talked about this again at the forum. I've talked about it in some user groups, but it's worth kind of talking about from an invoicing perspective, some things that we are working on. And this is really kind of from a post upgrade. I'll have some dates for you on the upgrade here coming up in some subsequent slides. We're going to wrap up that upgrade here pretty soon, within the next month and a half. But non-PO invoices is one thing that we're going to configure post upgrade. We've gotten some feedback from some of the agencies we've been working with, and kind of the thought was, well, hey, once we move and we start doing electronic invoicing with eVA, what are our options for doing all of our invoicing where we're doing those approvals and authorizations in eVA? And just getting everything as an electronic invoice. And we absolutely have a path out of the box. Our iValua software, or eVA in and of itself, had the ability to collect non-purchase order invoices. So think about, utilities, rents, anything that's not a procurement. We kind of cut that off for our initial implementation. And now we've kind of changed track, and we've made enough progress where we said, well, we're going to configure and turn that functionality back on. So if an agency so chooses, they could do all of their invoicing and do those authorizations within eVA. The one I am very excited about, that is part of the upgrade, is our optical character recognition, or OCR. That will give, I think that's a real game changer for us. What that is once the upgrade is done, it introduces this OCR functionality to the invoicing process. So from a supplier perspective, they would continue to email their invoices to you or directly to eVA. You would get that email with the invoice attachment consumed into eVA. The optical character recognition saves the attachment, but creates an electronic invoice transaction automatically for you. And then it's really cool. It has machine learning in it. And once you map a supplier's invoice, so, an invoice comes in and the system kind of figures out, okay, I see the invoice number, I see the billing address, I see the supplier, any other very critical, pertinent information. Once that gets mapped one time for a supplier, as long as the invoice format doesn't change, you don't have to map it every time an invoice comes in. So really cool function and feature that we're excited to get launched post-upgrade. We're going to make the invoice attachment required on all electronic invoicing transactions. So that way you have a document from the supplier that was sent in as an invoice while you're dealing with the electronic transaction. So you can always reference, and for documentation and historical purposes, have a copy of that invoice transaction. We're going to improve the P-card workflow around invoicing. Again, for those of you that haven't even looked at invoicing yet, that may not make any sense, but we're going to make an improvement there. So when you do get into invoicing, it'll be easier to deal with situations when a supplier attempts to invoice a purchase order which should have been paid by a P-card. There's some protections there for you to kind of avoid double paying, but we're making an improvement to that workflow. And then one last slide here, some additional enhancements. Finance system integrations, those are kind of there. We don't currently have an agency we're working with to do the integrations. So we know kind of post-upgrade, we're going to need to do some programming and some tweaking on that. But the idea behind a finance system integration is once an invoice is authorized for payment, sending those details up to the finance system so that you have an authorized and approved invoice that you can then uh, get your voucher keyed and things like that in your finance system. Again, eVA's not replacing any part of the payment process. We're coming in to do the invoice, matching it to your PO, matching it to your receipt. So you have those three elements: invoice, receipt, and PO, getting it authorized electronically in eVA, and then sending it up to a finance system to complete any of the finance things you need to do, including the voucher and payment processing. And then another part about the finance system integration is we'd like to have those payment details sent back to eVA so that within eVA, you kind of have the full picture: rec, PO, receipt, invoice, voucher, and even check details. And you can have that in one area from a reporting perspective. So you have one place to go to see the full picture. So that's something that's going on. And then some additional things with invoicing, lots of analytics and dashboards that become available. And again, we'll really be looking for feedback from you guys as end users on what that's going to look like, what is valuable to you as within that invoicing process. What makes the difference for your agency from an analytics perspective. So that's really what's going on with invoicing. Again, I think it's going to be a big year in 2025 from an invoicing perspective, and we're excited to continue to roll out this functionality. My kind of take on it is, from a functional perspective, for both, particularly with the OCR, it's very easy to use for your suppliers, and they get some transparency into the invoicing authorization process and payment process that they've never had before. And then on your end, we think the functionality is very easy to use functionally. A lot of discussions about business processing, change management, bringing in potential fiscal users into eVA. That certainly introduces some complexity. But again, from a functional perspective, we think it's very easy functionality to use and utilize. So that's invoicing. As mentioned, I kind of teed up the invoicing enhancements to dig into the upgrade. And this is where I got a couple slides I want to go through. And then I'm going to stop sharing my presentation, and I'm going to shift, and we're going to go into our 180 UAT environment and kind of bump around and show you some stuff. So from an upgrade perspective, we're moving from 168 is the platform we're on, and these are just point releases for us, to 180. It gets us on a much more recent version of the iValua software that eVA uses. That helps from a support perspective and things like that. We're making good progress. We're about 90% complete with our testing. We are very, very, very close. And our tentative go live is February 21st, where we'll switch over to the new environment. This is where I want to calm any nerves that you might have. We are not removing any functionality. On day one, there are no major changes to existing functionality. So for your kind of getting into these notes that I have on the bottom, for your supplier, the changes are minimal. And I'm really saying no impact to your supplier community. I don't even think they're going to know that there's been a switch. Outside of now you see the line right here. It's the fourth bullet, taking the third major bullet and then the fourth sub bullet. There's no blackout period or data freeze. So there's no lengthy blackout period or data freeze. We will take the environment over the weekend. So probably Friday afternoon, let's say we stick with the date on the 21st, going into that weekend, that Friday afternoon, probably around 4 or 5 o'clock, we will take the environment, and it will not come up until Monday morning. So you will lose the environment for the weekend. But for those of you that lived through the transition from our legacy eVA to the new platform we're currently on, we did have a little bit longer downtime period where eVA was actually down. And we did have some data considerations and things like that. You won't have any of those issues this time. There's no like, make sure everything's submitted and remember your drafts and all the other things that are in process. No concerns. No concerns. This is just like a weekend maintenance window for us. So from a usability standpoint, am I going to not have access to the system? Do I have to make sure all my sourcing events are submitted? No. You're we're gonna Friday evening, going to take the environment. Monday, you're going to come in, you're going to log in as normal, and off you go. So your drafts and all that work is going to be there. You're not going to lose anything. So again, for you in the buying community, I would argue you do your changes are minimal, but you do maybe potentially have a low impact. You may notice some labeling is a little different. You may notice like a tab is not where it was and some things like that. But you know what? I'm going to go into the environment and show you. We're going to walk through some stuff and you're going to see that. So again, saying very, 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 very low impact upgrade for you guys. And again, just repeating, there's no blackout period or data freeze, like no new sourcing. No, 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 no. So you won't have any of those issues for those of you that went through the transition. Again, this is a point release upgrade for us. You're on the same environment, on the same platform, on the same database. It's just us doing some system maintenance and getting us up on a little bit better point release. The one area, then that last one doesn't mean you can't do this, but we strongly suggest, and actually we suggest this all the time, guys. Don't have your open solicitations closing over the 221 weekend. I wouldn't suggest that under normal business operations to close your solicitations over a weekend. But certainly that's just if there's any reminder, let's be careful with those open solicitations, like not closing them on Saturday or Sunday, which I hope you're not doing anyway, unless you guys work the weekends. But again, just kind of a reminder on that. So continuing on with the upgrade, why are we doing this? Why are you doing this to me? I mentioned before, we're in an enterprise software solution. It's very important for us to stay on a more current point release so that not only does that help, certainly we get a lot of support from CGI, but the software itself, Evalua, for their staff, staying on a current point release helps us with their support. If there are problems, enhancements, upgrades, it's very important for us to stay on a current point release from a support perspective with Evalua. Some other things we're bringing in, like why are you doing this? There's some really cool stuff around discount lines and negative line items and your ability to receive against those and some things like that, which we're working through. Some things I'm going to show you. A sourcing summary. There is AI. Now, again, we're not necessarily launching the AI on day one, or actually, I said that wrong. We are not launching artificial intelligence on day one. There's a lot of hoops we have to jump through with security protocols and things like that, but it certainly opens up the potential ability for us to leverage. They call it, it's funny, it's eVA is how I would pronounce it, but Evalua, if you didn't know, is a French company, and the I is more pronounced like an E. So when you talk to Evalua, they call it eVA. So eVA supporting eVA. But there is a virtual assistant that gets introduced. Hopefully that's something as we move on through 2025 that we'll have a look at. There's integrated help, which is really cool. Now we have to configure it, but that's something we think we're going to leverage potentially for invoicing and for some other areas. It might change the way we train. And integrated help, it's literally on screen in production. You can go in and be like, well, I got to do a requisition. How do I do that? And it walks you through it. It's really cool. But again, not something you're going to see day one. The optical character recognition with machine learning, I already talked about that as part of invoicing. We're really excited about OCR and report subscriptions within Evalua. I know not all of you, and we haven't done a ton of work on this area, but eValuate has its own analytics module. There are some reports and some things like that. Some of you have access to this, some of you don't. But for those of you that have access, you can actually do subscriptions now. You can subscribe to certain reports, subscribe to certain dashboards, and get a summary on that. I'm going to show you what that looks like today as well. So let's dig in here as we're kind of turning up towards the top of the hour, and some things I'm going to demo for you guys. So some things we're going to look at. I'm going to pop over to the contract QRG. Again, that's not upgrade related. We're going to look at the user profile area, notifications, messages, my settings. I'm going to talk about a little nuance with the shopping cart you're going to see, which I think is kind of cool, but I want to show it to you. Contract document attachments, which are slightly different than how they're done now. Sourcing summary and report subscription. So some cool things we're going to do. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and give me just a second because I want to break out of my slideshow real quick so that that's not bothering me. And then I'm going to reshare and I'll give a second for the screen to load up. All right, it should be loading for everybody. Oh, and actually, that was actually neat. Zoom said your participants can now see your screen. So most of you should be seeing my screen. This is the 180 environment. I know the dashboard probably looks a little bit different than what you're used to now. There are some new things on the dashboard. So that's one of maybe the first changes you're noticing. But before I do that, bear with me just a second. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta stop sharing again because I've got some these. I had some Zoom meeting launchers there. Let me go back. Sorry about that, folks. Need to reshare real quick. And I'm back on the eVA homepage here. And there it goes. It should be sharing again. And the first thing, I almost jumped right into the upgrade because I was so excited without showing you the contract QRG. Several ways to navigate to training for the buying community. The way I do it is I go to this pretty shopping cart I buy for Virginia. Then I go to eVA buyer training. And then I go to, for this particular section, there's where the tips are. I talked about that earlier. I go to eVA guides. And when you go into the guide section, if you scroll down to contracts, and thank you, Dave Foster, wherever you are today. Dave did put the date. He posted these on December 16th. But this is what I was talking about earlier with the contract QRGs being broken into more digestible documents for you guys. So if you're amending a contract, you don't have to go to a big 20-page guide and find the amendment section. You can just go right here to amending if you're renewing, terminating. So hopefully that is easier for you and your staff to use and a little bit more digestible. So I did want to show you that before we digged into anything else. All right, back to the upgrade. So shifting back over to the 180 screen here. Again, the dashboard looks a little bit different. Remember, these dashboards are configurable. You can adjust them. There are kind of some new bubbles here where you can quickly jump to your requisitions, orders, receipts, invoices, things like that. Scroll off to the right for those of you who have Queue Manager. There's still those Queue Manager bubbles are there. There is a recently purchased items list that comes in, some shortcuts to some things, some catalogs and stuff like that. And then some stuff you're maybe used to seeing. Browse history, your to-do list, order status, things like that. Again, so I don't know that if this is going to be the final dashboard that's going to go live or if they're going to replicate more closely the dashboard you have now. But in the UAT environment, this is just what the dashboard looks like. And again, it's configurable. You can always jump up to that screen here or that link here, and you can customize your dashboard. So let's dig into a couple of the new things that you will see day one. Now, in general, this all looks the same, right? Look, suppliers, and I can browse suppliers. Now, I might have more options than you do because I'm an admin, but suppliers, sourcing, contracts, shop, procurement, where you're doing recs and orders and receipts. There's an invoicing tab, analytics if you have it. Then I have some administrative things here, admin, config, and manage, which are some administrative options for me, and then a report center. So a lot of you have at least a handful of these tabs, and you'll notice shop and contracts. They look the same. They feel the same. They act the same. The navigation's exactly similar. But again, one of the things you may notice around your profile is when I hit this drop down, some things are broken out. On your drop down where your name is, you'll see my settings, my addresses, and then of course you can log out. And then you'll notice there's some options here. There's a little bell and it has a little red area in it. Well, this is a new way to get into your notifications, and it has a couple really cool options. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. One area, and I'll start from the bottom and work down from the top, is messaging. So if you use the messaging feature within a transaction, so you could go to a requisition, and on that requisition, you have a chat. You do a chat, you exchange documents, you do things like that. You get a really nice summary of this here. You can filter for various conversations. We don't do a lot between supplier, but if you were having conversations, I think we've got a lot of that cut off. The conversation type, which gives you all these weird types, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're having a conversation on a particular transaction, you can get a summary of that. So for this particular rec, if I click on this, you'll notice the conversation I'm asking, that goes back a long time ago. I'm asking Lisa to look at this rec. I attach the document. So that rec, 193.063, I can very quickly come into my little bell, hit messages, and see all the messages where I've had conversations based around a particular transaction or subject. You'll notice in the orders area, I had started a conversation and I had added a document. I did an internal conversation and I really wasn't talking to anybody, but I had added a document there. So a great feature if you're using that messaging feature to go and look and go through all the different messages you've sent, and very quickly even the associated transactions. So I think kind of a neat feature if you're leveraging that. Going back to the bell, your pending validations. Now that was, I think, baked into the profile. Currently, it's broken out alone. It even gives me a little counter that I have 9+ validations, and it's angry at me because I haven't done them. Pending validations or pending approvals is also on your dashboard as well. But you can click pending validations and that launches a screen where you can go in. I've got all these purchase requisitions. Oh dear, I haven't approved them. I'm a buyer manager. I got eVA approvals, So I've got a bunch of requisitions that I need to approve. But that's a much quicker way. Again, depending on how you customize your dashboard or what you're doing, your pending validations are up here as well. Scheduled tasks is something that we don't really use right now. We don't have a lot of scheduled tasks going on, but it is an out-of-the-box feature. But it's there. Don't even really need to go into it again. It's not something we're doing a lot of task scheduling in the way we have eVA configured. But certainly your notifications, and let me go into here. I do need to adjust the date. Set that back a little bit. So any notifications you might have gotten, and these are email messages. So it gives you a summary of all of the emails that the system has sent to you. So I get a ton in UAT, as you can see, to approve requisitions. So, 7 days ago, I got an email from the system. I can click on it and it'll tell me the email I got and give me the access link so that I can drive right into that requisition to make that approval. So any email messages you got from the system are stored here as well. Again, a majority of those for us are going to be approvals. So again, just kind of a convenience feature and a new way to group messages, validations, and notifications. They're kind of grouped often on their own, which I think is fantastic. The change I wanted to show you around your profile, if you hit this drop down, your addresses, that's you got the same look now. When you go to my settings, and this kind of gives you a summary of your profile and your commodities and, just some general information. Your P card information is here as well. You'll notice there's a notifications link. So if I click on that, I've got all these different notifications I can get, and this is going to introduce to us the ability to adjust how often we receive notifications. This was something we had in our legacy environment. We really hadn't had that reintroduced to us in this new environment, but now it is. Now you'll notice outside of the message center, which, the chat messages you add to a transaction, where we've got these locked down. All right. So on day one, you're not going to be able to make many changes here, but certainly moving forward, we're going to explore these, open these up. So if you're an approver and in the e-procurement area, requisitions, you just want to get a daily summary of your emails, you'll be able to go in and adjust your notifications. Now, they also use some funny wording, minimal, medium, and maximal. Kind of interesting, right? But at least it gives you a little definition at the top. Important notifications only on the fly, informative once per day. I could see some of our approvers kind of switching and saying, just give me a summary at the end of the day of the things I need to approve, right? At the end of the day or once per day, shoot me an email for any, requisitions I still need to look at. I could see that happening. But again, right now, we're not changing anything. You're getting everything immediately from a notification perspective. Like, you do have that one area you could adjust. I would argue to not mess with that. Just get those messaging notifications on the fly. But again, some new things that are going on. And that's really one of the major areas where you're going to see changes right out of the gate is up here. And I hope you see that as a convenience. I really, really like the fact that I can go to my notifications and see all the emails that I've received, especially if I've deleted them out of my inbox. We're going to keep them for you, where you'll be able to go in and see those. So, really, really kind of some cool stuff from a notifications perspective. I'm going to drive back to my homepage here, or my welcome dashboard and portal, and talk about kind of two nuances with the shopping cart. You're going to see the shopping cart is very prominent, and it's in two spots here. And I thought this was interesting. Your shopping cart here on this side, kind of down below the fold, and in this area, if I open this, this is really an area where I can manage any draft or any requisitions I have that are still out in draft that I'm working on. So I even have a draft rec here, or I could start a new requisition, but it's a very quick way. It's very similar to going to procurement browse rec, right? It's just another way to get to browse requisitions. And it's really for draft requisitions and requisitions where you're still adding items. So, from this screen, you can very quickly just hit the shopping cart, and I can either start a new rec, or I can go in here and get to my draft requisition, and I'll shift that. I don't have any items in that draft requisition, but you get the idea. I could then go out to shop, search products, and begin adding items to that rec. But again, just a quick way to get to my draft recs. The shopping cart at the top, again, if I have some things in process, it's going to take me to that. But this is also a very quick way for the above the fold, the larger shopping cart. If I hit that, it's going to take me right to the search products, and I can begin searching and adding catalog items. So I wanted to kind of describe that nuance between the two and how they act and interact a little bit differently. But again, that's no different clicking this link than going to shop search products, right? So I hope you've noticed over the last couple of years, there's many different ways to kind of get to the same thing within eVA and here within iValue. So shifting from that, and I know we're starting to get a little close to time here, I want to show you there is a slight nuance, and I know there's some work and there's some folks looking into this. I think on day one, there are going to be some nuances to this, but for those of you that are contract managers, your contract documents, I'm just going to go into the browse contracts area, I'm going to limit to my scope, and I've got this draft contract here. There is some nuance to attaching documents to your contract. So I'm in a draft contract, my statewide widgets. I haven't even submitted it yet. I'm still working on it. When I go to the document section and I want to add a document, if I'm adding a main contract document, the contract document itself, one of the major documents going on to this contract, when I click this, right now in our environment, you get a pop-up that asks you, are you using native? Or are you going to do some authoring within contract module where you're just going to attach a document? It doesn't ask you that now. It's kind of expecting you to click. And then as soon as you click the Word option, it opens up your ability to upload a document and put that in there. So I just wanted to show you that little nuance. You're not seeing that pop up anymore. And then same thing, let me go. And one of the things we noticed too, you're really needing to go back using the navigation here, navigate to the previous page. If I go back into documents and I add other documents, looks very, very similar. So I'll show you here. Attachment. And let's say we're going to make this public. And I'm going to add a document here. Let's give me a sec. There's some POs that I have. I'm going to open up this PO. Had some bourbon POs, all sorts of fun stuff from my testing. Once that's in there, steps are the same. You hit save. Remember, for drafts, you might need to, there it goes. It got attached. I might need to, approve, to make sure I get that attachment approved and that it goes out and that it's associated. And again, one of the little tricks here, it kind of leaves you actually need to then navigate back, using your navigation there. Little bit different navigation on contract attachments than you had before. And then there's my demo attachment. It's approved and it's public there. So just a couple nuances to that I want to make you aware of, going in and doing your contract attachments. And then again, making sure, notice I've got a couple draft. They're not approved attachments yet. I can approve them on the fly here. Just making sure if you want that attachment to go on your contract, that you also take that extra step, make sure you get approved. Of course, that exists now, but just so you see that, just a little bit of a nuance. And I know our teams are looking into that and making that a little bit more user-friendly moving forward. Another area I'm going to dive into sourcing that was a big hit at the forum, but I just wanted to repeat myself and show this to you guys. If you go in, for those of you that have sourcing, you go into browse sourcing projects, and I'm just going to bring up my sourcing project here. It's just I've got it limited to my scope, and I was doing something, I was playing with sourcing workflow. I'm going to go into this sourcing project. There is this thing called a summary report, which is really cool. So for any of your sourcing projects, you can click this summary report and it gives you this very nice, it generates a PDF for you. Hopefully this will share. I'm pretty sure it's sharing. Let me double check. Yes, it is sharing the summary report, but you get this really cool summary of the procurement itself, of the sourcing, the business opportunity, the sourcing event itself, some metrics that are in there, your bid list. Just this one's going to be rather large. Just some really cool stuff that happens, and just a very, very. I thought, there's my item. I'm doing football helmets, so you get your item, so you get your bid list, your item. There's some really great stuff going into this sourcing summary. Now, to be fair, on day one, and I know the next immediate question is, this sourcing summary is great. Can we add in this? Can we modify this? Can we change this label? Can we fix? Day one, this is what you're going to get. And as you guys work with this sourcing summary and you want to remove something, add something, clarify something, make something different, we will certainly work with you on that. I think we're all well aware when our tool introduces something new, that immediately becomes a wow, this is great, but you need to add this field, remove this field, add in SWAM, right? Give us some time on that, but I wanted to show you guys that and make you aware of that sourcing summary option. I think it's really cool. But let's work with it for a few weeks before we just start immediately asking for enhancements on it, because I know that's where you guys are going to go. But I love you. I love you for it. And the last thing here, for those of you that have the analytics tab, you have some reports and some things you can do. If you go to the reporting homepage, you have all sorts of fun reports. For those of you that have sourcing assigned to you, you can see advanced sourcing. You should be able to see the analytics tab. I'll just go to an example here. This should work. I go to a particular dashboard, and this, opens up all sorts of fun things. Average PR to PO conversion, how long it's taking for things to get approved. If you go to this section right here, you can subscribe to a particular report, a dashboard, things like that. When you hit subscribe, you can add a new schedule. You can name it. You can knock out these days, and let's say I want to get this every Friday. I'll take those out. File format, Excel, PDF, Word. I can start it. I don't have to put a last day in. And you can store it online, or you can have it emailed to you. So pretty cool features. Let's say there's a particular report you like. Maybe this could be one. Average days. How long is it taking something to get approved? Maybe you want to track and make sure your organization's doing less non-catalog POs. Right now we're doing 88% non-catalog POs in this UAT environment. Maybe that's something I want to get every week because I want to do more catalog purchasing across my organization. So you could have that summary sent to you monthly, weekly. Really some cool features there from an analytics perspective. But I am worked my way right up to time. It is 11 o'clock. I appreciate your time today. I thank you so much for attending. I hope you saw something cool about the upgrade, but at the very least, I hope you're able to walk away from today's meeting going, the upgrade is going to really tee us up for some exciting stuff, but it's not going to impact me on day one. I'm going to be fine. So thanks again for your time today. Happy New Year to everybody. And again, I'll put in the little tease. In March, we'll be coming back talking about some enhancements and some more fun things that are coming in 2025. So hope to see you for our next bug meeting in March.
Yes, and thank you guys so much behind the scenes. I know Tony was answering several questions that we had specifically related to invoicing and Cardinal and that type of thing.
Great.
Remember
Thank
to
you,
reach
Tony.
out to your eVA lead and or your DPS account executive if you have specific assistance or questions that you might need. Look for the meeting playback to come out later today or tomorrow, and it'll also be posted on the website. Shane, thanks for all the great information you shared. Bree, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, welcome, Bree.
Continue to join us for these. And again, thank you, Tony, for all those questions that you answered. Thank you guys for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay warm. We'll see you in March.
Thanks, everybody.